and welcome to the podcast. This is Ron's Amazing Stories. We have stories that should thrill you a little and chill you a little.
It's amazing.
You will hear adventures sent in by you guys, classic stories from the pulp mags, and episodes from the golden age of radio. We have special segments like Ghost Stories with Sylvia.
That's amazing.
And The Paranormal with Jason.
I think we're going to have a lot of fun.
So settle in for the next hour and enjoy the show. Oh, and you just might want to prepare yourself to be taken away from today.
Another 5-minute mystery.
This 5-minute mystery is being brought to you by The Woods. David Douglas once said, "A forest of these trees is a spectacle too much for one man to see." Who is David Douglas? Well, the famous fir tree was named after him. And now, here's our story.
Well, Mrs. Holmes, how do you like it?
Oh, it's beautiful, Ken. Just think, we'll be spending the rest of the month of August up here.
I always said the Adirondacks is the finest country in the world for vacationing.
Well, it's been so long since we've had a real vacation, too. There was always some murder or robbery to interfere with our plans. You know, being married to a private detective certainly has its disadvantages.
But starting today until the end of August, it's all pleasure and no business, Beth.
Ken, watch out!
Say, what's the matter with you? Don't you know any better than to run in front of a car like that?
I'm awfully sorry, but I was in a hurry to get some help. A man's been killed. There he is, at the bottom of the cliff.
What is it, Ken?
Stay back, Beth. I wouldn't look over the edge if I were you. It's not a very pretty sight. I'd say that was about a 300-foot drop. You didn't have a chance.
I told him not to do it. I told him not to.
You knew him then?
Yes, he was a friend of mine, Gordon Gray.
Gordon Gray? Why, Ken, that couldn't be the Gordon Gray we met at the National Museum.
He was curator of birds there. Did you know him?
Only slightly. Had a few talks with him when my wife and I visit the museum. I'm an amateur at birds myself. Did you work with him?
No, my name is Wallace, Carl Wallace. I was merely a good friend to Mr. Gray.
Well, how did it happen, Wallace?
Well, you see, Gray and I were walking along the edge of the cliff here. He invited me out on a field trip with him. He was pointing out some birds to me when suddenly he spied a hawk's nest on a ledge a little ways down the cliff.
Where's the nest, Wallace?
I really don't know. His eyes were so much keener than mine, he could pick out things like that almost by intuition. Hawks build their nests along the sides of cliffs, you know.
Yes, he told me that once.
Well, he said he saw some eggs in the nest. He'd like to get them. He started to climb over the edge, and I begged him not to do it.
He fell?
Yes, he'd gotten about 10 feet down the cliff when suddenly he seemed to get dizzy. He put one hand to his head, he waved a moment, and then he fell.
Oh, Ken. And he was such a nice old man, too.
Yes, it's a pity anyone would want to murder him.
Murder? Well, what's the matter with you? I just told...
Nothing's the matter with me, Wallace, but things will be pretty exciting for you when you come up on trial for the murder of Gordon Gray.
What clue tipped off Ken Holmes that Gordon Gray had not met with accidental death but had been murdered? The answer in a few moments, but first...
Wow, that detective was pretty quick to dismiss that story. I can't be sure, but it must have been something, again, that they didn't tell us, which the detective will know and will be able to solve the case. My guess is that it has to do with bird watching. Let's go see.
And now, back to our story.
You're crazy, Holmes. I told you exactly what happened, and that's the truth.
Not exactly the truth. You were running away from the scene of a crime when I almost ran you down with a car, a crime you'd committed. Gordon Gray didn't fall 300 feet to his death. You pushed him. Your on-the-spot alibi wasn't bad, except for one thing. A highly rated curator of birds at the National Museum wouldn't have said that he saw a hawk's nest with eggs in it on this mountainside. At least not in the month of August. The hawk's nesting period ended in June. Don't put words in a dead man's mouth, Wallace. They're dangerous.
What are the odds that the detective would know the mating patterns of hawks in August? At least they did tell us it was August. Good for them. Also, why would the professor be on a cliff with someone who wanted to kill him? Food for thought. This 5-Minute Mystery was brought to you by The Woods, where all good hawks go to live.
What's that you say?
Welcome to the podcast this week. Today's show brings the creepy, strange, and the funny.
What does that mean?
Well, it means that we have creepy stuff, strange stuff, and funny stuff.
I'm not following you.
Okay, we have strange and creepy stories from you guys about your encounters into the woods. Then, our featured story is a creepy tale from the classic old-time radio series, Quiet, Please.
Okay, but what about the funny stuff?
Well, we have something from Audible by Douglas Adams.
Oh, that sounds good.
One can only hope. Last week I said that if you wanted to know the podcast numbers from where you live, I'd be happy to do that for you. Well, 2 of you wrote in and wanted to know. Christy Malone from Arkansas and Thomas Day, who lives in Alaska. Thomas also asked for the numbers in Norway, where his brother is stationed. So, here we go. For the last 90 days, the results are: Arkansas had 135. Alaska had 86. In Norway, well, they didn't have a single download. However, Finland had 13 and Sweden had 19. Now, I have a large amount of Norwegian blood in me, and I have to say I was a little disappointed by that news. I think I'll send a note to Ernest Solberg, who just happens to be the country's prime minister. Now, let's get to that funny stuff with this message from Audible. Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook and a 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/Ron's Amazing Stories. They have over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, computer, Kindle. Whatever you have, you can listen to Audible on it. So what am I listening to right now? The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams and narrated by Stephen Fry. Who hasn't heard of this classic story? But have you only seen the movie? It was good, but the book is so much better. Seconds before the Earth is demolished to make room for a galactic freeway, Arthur Dent is plucked off the planet by his friend, Ford Prefect, a researcher for the revised edition of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. The story opens with our hero facing the prospect of his very own house being bulldozed away. Here's a clip.
He had lived in it for about 3 years, ever since he had moved out of London because it made him nervous and irritable. He was about 30 as well, tall, dark-haired, and never quite at ease with himself. The thing that used to worry him most was the fact that people always used to ask him what he was looking so worried about. He worked in local radio, which he always used to tell his friends was a lot more interesting than they probably thought. It was, too. Most of his friends worked in advertising. On Wednesday night, it had rained very heavily. The lane was wet and muddy, but the Thursday morning sun was bright and clear as it shone on Arthur Dent's house for what was to be the last time. It hadn't properly registered yet with Arthur that the council wanted to knock it down and build a bypass instead. At 8 o'clock on Thursday morning, Arthur didn't feel very good. He woke up blearily, got up, wandered blearily round his room, opened a window, saw a bulldozer, found his slippers, and stomped off to the bathroom to wash. Toothpaste on the brush. So scrub. Shaving mirror, pointing at the ceiling. He adjusted it. For a moment it reflected a second bulldozer through the bathroom window. Properly adjusted, it reflected Arthur Dent's bristles. He shaved them off, washed, dried, and stomped off to the kitchen to find something pleasant to put in his mouth. Kettle, plug, fridge, milk, coffee, yawn. The word bulldozer wandered through his mind for a moment in search of something to connect with. The bulldozer outside the kitchen window was quite a big one. He stared at it. Yellow, he thought, and stomped off back to his bedroom to get dressed. Passing the bathroom, he stopped to drink a large glass of water, and another. He began to suspect that he was hungover. Why was he hungover? Had he been drinking the night before? He supposed that he must have been. He caught a glint in the shaving mirror. Yellow, he thought, and stomped on to the bedroom. He stood and thought. The pub, he thought. Oh dear, the pub. He vaguely remembered being angry about something that seemed important. He'd been telling people about it at great length, he rather suspected. His clearest visual recollection was of glazed looks on other people's faces. Something about a new bypass he had just found out about. It had been in the pipeline for months, only no one seemed to have known about it. Ridiculous. He took a swig of water. It would sort itself out, he decided. No one wanted a bypass. The council didn't have a leg to stand on. It would sort itself out. God, what a terrible hangover it had earned him, though. He looked at himself in the wardrobe mirror. He stuck out his tongue. Yellow, he thought. The word yellow wandered through his mind in search of something to connect with. 15 seconds later, he was out of the house and lying in front of a big yellow bulldozer that was advancing up his garden path. Mr. L. Prosser was, as they say, only human. In other words, he was a carbon-based bipedal life form descended from an ape. More specifically, he was 40, fat and shabby, and worked for the local council. Curiously enough, though he didn't know it, he was also a direct male-line descendant of Genghis Khan, though intervening generations and racial mixing had so juggled his genes that he had no discernible mongoloid characteristics, and the only vestiges left in Mr. L. Prosser of his mighty ancestry were a pronounced stoutness about the tum and a predilection for little fur hats. He was by no means a great warrior. In fact, he was a nervous, worried man. Today he was particularly nervous and worried because something had gone seriously wrong with his job, which was to see that Arthur Dent's house got cleared out of the way before the day was out. "Come off it, Mr. Dent," he said. "You can't win, you know. You can't lie in front of the bulldozer indefinitely." He tried to make his eyes blaze fiercely, but they just wouldn't do it. Arthur lay in the mud and squelched at him. "I'm game," he said. "We'll see who rusts first." "I'm afraid you're going to have to accept it," said Mr. Prosser, gripping his fur hat and rolling it round the top of his head. "This bypass has got to be built, and it's going to be built." "First I've heard of it," said Arthur. "Why has it got to be built?" Mr. Prosser shook his finger at him for a bit, then stopped and put it away again. "What do you mean, why's it got to be built?" he said. "It's a bypass. You've got to build bypasses."
Now all of this leads to the bigger picture of the entire planet being destroyed for the very same reason that Arthur's house is being torn down. Coincidence, you say? I'm not so sure. You will meet a galaxy full of strange travelers. Zephod Breeblebox, the totally out-to-lunch president of the galaxy, Trillian. Zephod's girlfriend, formerly Trisha McMillan, whom Arthur tried to pick up at a cocktail party once upon a time zone. Marvin, a paranoid, brilliant, and chronically depressed robot, and Veet Vojojig, a former graduate student who is obsessed with the disappearance of all the ballpoint pens he has bought over the years. Where are these pens? Why are we born? Why do we die? What is the meaning of life? For all the answers, you need this audiobook today. Here's what Audible has set up for us. Audible is offering a free audiobook and 30 days to give you the opportunity to check out their service. To download your free audiobook today, go to audibletrial.com/Ron's Amazing Stories. Again, that's audibletrial.com/Ron's Amazing Stories, and you too can have the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy today. Thank you, Audible. And now, it's time for your stories.
These are your stories, sent by you, for you.
The title for this podcast is Into the Woods. The reason is simple. This time, your stories come from the great outdoors and are linked to, you guessed it, the woods. Our forests can be a strange and wonderful place. There are dangers, wonderful sights, and of course, the paranormal. Why does it go silent? What was that noise in the bushes? Who was that banging on that tree trunk? This time, I'm going to tell you tales from this mysterious subgenre of stories. The Voice. Lisa, who lives in New York City and didn't want to use her last name, was once hiking in southern Utah with a friend when they heard a woman's voice, loud and clear, moaning in pain. The voice seemed to come from behind a nearby boulder. But when they ran over to help, no one was there. Back at the Red Mountain Resort, where Lisa and her friend were staying, they told a guide about the weird incident. He replied that indeed a lot of spirits are believed to reside in that area. One story included a woman who had gotten lost. She climbed a tree to try to get her bearings and fell. Her body was discovered that next spring. It was determined that the fall led to her death, but was not the cause of it. In other words, she survived it. How long, none can say, but her moans are heard in the area of her fall to this day. I can still hear the woman's moans to this day, Lisa says. It was so eerie. Lisa, New York City. Thank you for your story, Lisa. I tried to do some research on what the guide told you and came up empty. I did learn about the Red Mountain Resort. According to them, it has everything you need to relax, renew, and rediscover your passion for adventure. As one of the most ideally located resorts in St. George, Utah, Red Mountain Resort allows for customized adventures to Zion or Bryce National Park, and to places like Snow Canyon State Park, which is only a quarter of a mile down the road. How about that? And thank you for your story, Lisa. Our second woodsy story comes from Michael Radcliffe, who lives in Minnesota. The title of this story is Scourge of the Mice Devils. Hello, Ron. I just found your podcast and I love it. I'm just starting to work through your library and having a good time. I have a story for you that's not paranormal, but somehow I know you're going to like it. Thank you for doing what you do. Well, Michael, thank you for that, and here is his story. So there I was, perhaps 5 or 6 years old. My dad finally took me and 2 of my older siblings to Basswood Lake. I was so excited to go. We set up a big canvas tent, which was common in those days. I can still smell that canvas even now. I don't know if they ever truly dry out. It always felt kind of damp, and it always had a smell of mold and mildew. I kind of miss it, like I miss the smell of a two-stroke motor in the water. After a day of fun, it was time to go to bed. We all walked into the tent and lined up, side by side, in sleeping bags on top of mats. But sweet dreams didn't await us that night. In the middle of the night, there was a lot of commotion. I woke up to mice scurrying all over us. They had somehow chewed their way into the tent. There seemed like hundreds of them. The mice were in our bags, and they were crawling all over us. There were flashlights zipping around the tent, shining briefly on various culprits. Oh, and there was action outside, too. We could see and hear them running across the top of the tent. An occasional owl would sweep down and grab one of them in the moonlight, right off the tent topper. My dad had work gloves on, and he was trying to corral them, while my brother grabbed them and stuffed them back into the holes. I had nightmares about this for a very long time. The next morning, the nightmares continued. The carnage from the mouse attack had wreaked havoc on our food supply and cooking utensils. Somehow, everything was soaked in water, and it hadn't even rained. Dead mice were everywhere, and in the pots and pan were drowned mice. With no food left and spirits broken, we cleaned up and packed up, ending our weekend trip early. I'm 53 years old now, and I've been back 47 years in a row to Basswood Lake. The events of that night have never been repeated. I have no explanation for what happened, and I've not heard of anyone else that has experienced the scourge of the mice doubles. Now, I've had to move my camp because of bears, but never again because of mice. Michael Radcliffe, Minnesota. Well, Michael, that is wrong in so many ways. I've never been afraid of the lowly mouse, and this story changes all of that. To think that they can swarm is the stuff of bad dreams and long nights. Thank you for that. I do, however, appreciate you sharing your story. This next story of the wood comes from Jenny Mathis, who also lives in Minnesota. St. Paul, to be exact. Her story is titled Late Night Encounter, and Jenny writes, My cousins live in North Dakota, and I spent winter break there freshman year in college. We were at her friend's house one night, drinking in her basement with some other girls, and it was really late, like 3 a.m. I was starting to fall asleep, so I decided to walk home. They live in a desolate area with lots of snow, and it gets really cold, especially at night. But the houses aren't too far apart, and when the moon is full, it seems like daylight. The path we always take is straight behind the house through some wooded areas. I was shuffling home through the snow with my head down. I look up and to the left, and probably 75 yards away is another figure walking in the opposite direction. I saw him a split second before he saw me. When he did, he kind of jerked his arms and shoulders up a little bit, obviously startled from the sight of me as I was with him. I laughed out loud for some reason, and the laugh sounded strange in the cold night air. I gave him a little wave like, "Oh, hey, you startled me, haha, sorry," kind of thing. He just stood there and stared at me. I thought he was going to say something for a second, so I stopped and looked at him. He had a full-face ski mask on and was really tall. He didn't say anything. So what felt like forever, it's me and some stranger in a ski mask looking at each other in the desolate woods in the middle of winter at 3 a.m. Very strange. A chill went up my spine, and a voice inside me said, "You need to get the heck out of here right now." I turned my gaze away and started walking as fast as I could home, but towards him. I've never been that scared in my life. I was a little drunk, stoned, and very paranoid. As I passed him, in my mind's eye I could see myself walking home and this man running up from behind with an axe, Not something you want to be thinking about. So I literally just screamed and started sprinting as fast as I could all the way home, knowing that this guy could be easily following my tracks in the snow. My thoughts were, I'm gonna get murdered. As my scream died down, I heard the trail off of his scream. He too was running, but in the opposite direction. I stopped and turned to watch as he ran smack dab into a tree and fell to the ground. I was stunned, and I didn't know what to do next. I walked over to him and could see he was out cold. Blood was running from an angry gash on his head. I called 911 on my phone, and when help arrived, I told my story. The policeman tried not to laugh and told me that he would be in contact with me if needed. It turned out that the boy, only 14, was walking home from a friend's house and was more scared than I was. He had been playing Dungeons and Dragons and was all worked up. He was fine and suffered only a mild concussion. But I don't think I'll be visiting my friend there again anytime soon. Jenny Mathis, St. Paul, Minnesota. What a great story, Jenny, and I thank you for it. It sounds like a creepy situation turned into a humorous one. The mind sure can play tricks on us all. Our last story is a short but creepy one sent in by Alice Wakeford from Boise, Idaho. She has titled this one, Alone in the Cabin. Hello, Ron. I'm not sure you're going to want this one, but a few years ago, my friend and I were staying in a small cabin my dad had on a remote piece of land in the Idaho wilderness. The nearest town is probably 50 miles away, and the nearest active road that wasn't an old logging road was about 2 miles from the cabin. My friend and I had been BSing and laughing in the cabin in our bunks, and it was about midnight. We turned off the lantern and were trying to fall asleep when we heard something scrape the door. We both lifted our heads and mumbled a conversation of, "Did you hear something?" "Yeah, I heard something." "What was that?" Then, in the middle of nowhere in this remote cabin, someone starts knocking on the door. Doesn't say anything, just knocks. Now, we're both in our 30s, but we were so scared we didn't say anything, weren't gonna do anything. We just laid there with our heads up, staring at the door. We didn't move, we didn't go out again until it was light out. When we did, there was nothing near the door that would have tapped against it, and no animal tracks. In fact, no tracks at all. Oh, and it had just rained the night before and the ground was muddy. It freaks me out just thinking about it. Alice Wakeford, Boise, Idaho. Whoa, that is a creepy story, and I think I will use it on the show, as you just heard. Thank you for sharing your story, Alice. Well, those are your stories this time. If you have a story that you want to share, just head to the main website at ronsamazingstories.com and click on the story submission banner. And please remember to name your tale and tell me where you're from. I love your stories as much as you do. Sometimes when I'm looking for a story to share with you, I unearth something new. You see, people are finding episodes of old-time radio programs all the time. For example, a few years ago, a man was cleaning up his recently passed grandmother's attic and found a stack of transcription discs from the 1950s. They were full of Lawrence Welk recordings. Where she got them, or how, is a mystery. Today's offering was just recently added to the Quiet Please list of shows. I'd never heard it, and I'm excited to share it with you today. The recording was in pretty horrible shape, so I cleaned up the audio as best I could. This story is, well, it's creepy. It's called Tanglefoot, and it should have you squirming in your seats. It comes from the radio drama series Quiet Please, which was known to have some of the creepiest horror tales out there, even by today's standards. This one first aired on the Mutual Broadcasting System in June of 1949.
The American Broadcasting Company presents Quiet Please, which is written and directed by Willis Cooper and which features Ernest Chappell. Quiet Please for tonight is called Tanglefoot. Back in the old days, when GI didn't mean general issue, it just meant galvanized iron, I used to be a plumber. There are no cracks about leaving tools in the shop when you go out on a job. Because if a plumber took along all the tools he's liable to need on a job he don't know nothing about till he gets there, he'd need one of those moving vans to tote him. Just the same, what you can do with a 14-inch Stilson wrench and a mitt full of oakum, you'd be surprised at. This place where I worked, well, you ever smell a plumbing shop? And I tell you what you smell. Oakum first thing, like creosote. That's what you start with. Linseed oil, that's in the red lead you use on the joints and stuff. You smell a hot lead where the kids melting down scrap lead into little pigs you can put in your bag. Galvanized iron. Yeah, sure, you can smell galvanized iron. Go past the bins where they keep the L's and the T's and the street L's and the Cuptons and the Unions. All sizes. In 40 team sizes. You can smell galvanized iron, all right. Then there's the smell of rats that live back behind the bins. And gasoline burning in the blowtorches and the furnaces. And the thing I remember best of all, the smell of the flypaper. My heavens, there seemed to be flypaper every place. I don't know, maybe in the old days there was more of it, or there was more flies or something. Seemed like every place you went, you run into flypaper. Remember that smell? Like varnish with sugar in it? Like taffy that's got spoiled? Kind of a fascinating smell in a sicky way. Think about it and you'd kind of think, yeah, no wonder the flies liked the smell and went for it. Smell? Sure, flies can smell. They got smellers that'll make a bloodhound jealous if you know it. And the flies got lots of things. They got a jillion eyes, 6 fancy legs, wings, and a trunk like an elephant. Only littler, proboscis they call it. Huh? Ah, not the flies. They can't talk. Boy, howdy if they could. I know a lot about flies. I'll tell you about it. I can see it today. There was people living upstairs above the plumbing shop where I worked. That was in the summer of 1915, I guess, or quite a while ago. Their back porch hung over the back porch of the shop. Made kind of a shed where we used to thread pipe, melt up scrap lead, stuff like that. And Ricketts, the horse, he used to be tied up back there in the alley with a wagon. When he was working back there, it was quiet and shady and hot. All you could hear was Ricketts stamping his feet and switching his tail at the flies, and maybe the hoo of the gasoline furnace. Whoever he was working with talking kind of lazy and slow in the heat. Ah, boy, was it hot. I and Herbie, we was threading 3/4-inch black iron pipe.
You want the boat excursion tonight, Buck?
Yeah, what boat excursion?
Crawfish Club from the Percy Swing tonight.
Well, I thought it was tomorrow.
No, tonight.
Yeah, that's good enough. Get another length of pipe.
Hot, ain't it?
91's around, it says.
In the shade.
It's hot for old Ricketts out there in the sun.
His head's in the shade. What's he hollering about?
Flies, I guess.
Should put the fly netting on him.
Yeah.
Look out, don't step in the fly paper.
Yeah, fly paper every place. That Bert Kincaid's nuts about fly paper. Doggone stuff. Get it all over the place.
That's where you're throwing it.
You thread up the pipe. I'll take care of the fly paper. You think with all that stuff around there wouldn't be so many flies?
Flies are smart.
How do you mean? Smart.
Love fly paper.
Fly paper's always full of them.
And them's the dumb flies. Smart ones look at it and smell it and fly away. Land on people, horses, take a bite. Live longer.
I wonder how long flies live.
I don't know.
Too long.
Any more lengths of pipe we ain't threaded?
Good. I wonder what flies think about.
Eating?
That's what I'm thinking about. What time is it?
Look at that fancy new wristwatch of yours.
Busted.
Must be pretty near noon.
Gonna go home, do you?
Want to go with me?
I wasn't hinting.
Heck, you wasn't.
Well,
no flies on you, brother.
Oh, wow.
Mom makes some ice cream she left for me.
Your mom home?
No, she went up to Peoria this morning. P.A. Bergner's got a sale or something.
Well, I could stop at Ruins and get some boiled ham or something. We could make sandwiches.
Oh, we got some.
Oh, to get something, though, eating off you. Or...
Yeah.
12 o'clock.
Let's go.
Do you ever hear anything start so simple and easy and not meaning nothing? That don't mean anything? Yeah, you get it in a minute. You get a lot of stuff you don't expect. It all started that way, with threading pipe and kicking fly paper around and stuff. We ate up the ice cream at Herbie's house, sitting in the kitchen. It was kind of cool. And gosh, I hated to go back to work.
I hate to go back too, but I'd like to lay down and take a nap or something.
Yeah, Bert Kincaid can you?
Yeah. Wish that was a fly.
Yeah. Go bite Bert Kincaid.
Ah, that's all right. Only thing's wrong with him is he's a boss. Flies don't have bosses. Want some more ice cream?
Yeah, leave some for your mom.
Oh, she don't like ice cream. Don't you want some more?
No, I'm full.
Thanks. We can set a couple minutes more. It's only 20 to 1.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about flies.
Are you crazy about flies today?
I just got to thinking about it.
Well, what became of your dog?
He's out in the backyard. Gets hot. Likes to get under the coal shed to keep cool.
Like you handled that yourself?
Wished I had a pet fly.
You're crazy.
Got a pet fly. Fasten the rope on him. Lead him around.
Well, a little bitsy rope you'd have to have.
Now, this would be a great big fly. Big as a dog.
What kind of a dog?
I like that old collie of Masterson's.
Why, fly that big bite you, you'd be ruined.
Looking at a fly with a magnifying glass the other day.
Yeah. I seen one once.
Got the meanest looking faces I ever seen.
Great big eyes.
Jillian eyes. Look at you from all over. Always washing their faces like a cat.
They carry germs.
Oh, sure. Germs, though.
Gee. That big fly'd sure be something.
Sure be a swell pet, though.
If you could tame him.
Oh, I'd tame him all right.
Maybe the fly tamer.
Be as big and strong as a bull. Have to put a big chain on him.
He'd fly away with you.
Maybe I could train him to take me places. Fly, you know.
Yeah, you're sure thinking of the educated fly.
Flies are smart.
Fly paper catches and good old tanglefoot, boy.
You'll have to have an awful big piece of tanglefoot to catch this old boy. Ain't that much tanglefoot in the world.
Ain't no fly like that in the world either.
Oh, boy, if there was.
Didn't you hear the whistle? Come on, 1:45.
Yeah. I know what you'd feed a fly that big.
Have to feed them people, I guess.
Come on, let's go.
I remember it was pretty near 3-4 months later. It was just getting kind of the first days of fall, and people were starting to burn dry leaves along the curbstone. Herbie and me was fixing a hot water heater for Frank and Edith Gibbons, the telegraph operator. Live out there where Washington runs into Court Street. Kind of cool that day, I remember. Mrs. Gibbons, she was jawing at us because she said we were so slow. She wanted that hot water heater fixed right this minute. She wanted to take a bath before the chicken pie supper at the Christian church. She had to put the icing yet on 2 devil's food cakes, and would we please hurry up, she was all of a tizzy. Well, finally Henry come with the reducer tea we was waiting for. Mrs. Gibbons, she went out to the kitchen to look at the cakes, and don't go banging things around and make my cakes fall, she said. I said, yes, ma'am, for about the 40th time, and she shut the door. I laid down my ball-peen hammer. And I said, whew.
Me too.
Why can't women leave you alone?
Well, I get the union after her. She thinks she knows so much about plumbing.
Well, at least it's cool.
What's the matter?
Yeah, I got my elbow on the flypaper. My heavens, what she still got flypaper around for?
Here, let me do it.
Oh, got to take off the skin, too? Yeah, squirt me some gasoline on it. I got guck all over me. Ain't been any flies for 3 weeks. Any more gasoline?
I know where there's a fly.
Huh?
I know where there's a fly.
Well, why don't you swat him?
Well, 2 reasons. First, I kind of like this fly.
Like him?
Raised him from a pup.
Herbie. Raised a fly from a pup?
Second thing is, you want to swat this fly, you better have a baseball bat.
What?
This here fly is 8 inches long.
Huh?
Hand me the red lead.
How big?
Maybe 9. Where you going?
Miss Gibbons.
What are you calling her for?
Miss Gibbons, call up the asylum. Herbie Butterworth is seeing flies 9 inches long.
Here, under the coal shed. Come on, Teddy. Here, Teddy, boy. Here, Teddy. Come on, Teddy. Come on out there, boy. Darn you, Teddy. Come on, Teddy. Here, boy. Good dog. Come on, Ted. Ted. You hear me? Come on out of there. Come on now. Dog. Ted. Come on, boy. Teddy.
He's asleep, maybe.
What, with me hollering that way?
Well, maybe he ain't there. Maybe he's up.
Yes, too. I can see him. He's laying down in there. Here, Teddy. Here, Teddy.
Well, reach in and pull him out.
Come on, dog. Come on. What?
Huh?
He's dead.
You ain't ever seen anything, I mean, that a fly killed? No, I don't mean killed by putting germs on him or like that. I mean, well, murdered by a fly.
This here fly is 8 inches long. Maybe 9.
This here fly killed Teddy, that was Herbie Butterworth's dog, that was a hound dog that weighed 42 pounds on John April's scales the day before. This here fly, he just up and killed poor old Teddy. But maybe Teddy was scared to death by the fly first. Because nobody in the whole great big wide world ever seen a fly that was 8, 9 inches long. Nobody but first Herbie and then Teddy. And afterwards, me.
I ain't found him yet.
Maybe he got froze to death.
Kind of scares me, Buck. Don't it you?
He comes after me, I'll bat him on the head.
He'll come flying up to you. Come flying up. You won't even see his wings. You know how a fly's wings is. You can see through them.
Maybe he's froze to death. Flies can't stand cold weather. They die.
They don't always die. Sometimes they go into, what is it, a coma? When they get warm, they come to again. And then they're hungry.
Well, I think he's dead. Because we ain't heard about anybody croaking, with a mystery. Not since Teddy. Hey, I can still see that dog.
Try not thinking about Teddy.
Maybe you ought to leave some flypaper around. Big hunks of flypaper.
I got flypaper all around the coal bin there where he was.
Heavy enough?
It don't have to be so heavy. He lands on a hunk of tangle-footed. It'll get all stuck to the hair. And hair on his legs. Flies got hair on their legs.
Real hair?
More like bristles, like spikes, kind of. He get fly paper stuck in his legs, his wings. He ain't gonna go skittering around much.
Maybe he's dead.
Sure hope not.
Hope not?
Well, I kind of liked him. Till he ate up Teddy.
I'd be just as satisfied if I never get to see him. It must be quite a sight, though. Like looking at a fly through a magnifying glass.
Sure glad he only got to be 8-9 inches long. Hate to lose him. I could put him in a circus or a sideshow or something. Make $1 jillion. Take him up to Chicago. People would come from miles around.
To a zoo, just about. A museum like that one. Where is it, New York?
Yeah, he was quite a thing. He used to eat mice. I went and caught mice and let him have them. I ought to see what he'd do to a dead mouse.
Oh, thank you kindly. I seen what he'd done to Teddy. How'd you get him so big, Herbie?
Huh? Secret, Buck.
And so?
Bet if he'd lay an egg, the egg would be bigger. I mean, the pup would be bigger than he was.
Fly egg?
Bigger than a hen's egg it'd be. Bigger than maybe a turkey egg.
Maybe he's dead.
Yeah.
He comes after me. I'm going to shoot him, my old 12.
Ah, you couldn't hit a balloon with a bull fiddle.
You hit him all right. Hello, Louise.
How'd you do? Hey, who's that, Buck?
I don't know. Just moved to town from someplace in Ohio, Iowa, someplace.
Louise
McKinney, something like that.
Where'd you know her?
Met her at Empire Hall, that dance the other night.
What dance? Social Athletic Club?
Uh-huh.
Well, night. See you at the shop in the morning.
So long. It's cold, ain't it?
Yeah, gonna snow. Feels like snow.
More busted water pipes.
Yeah. So long, Buck. Say, at Louise, what's her name? That's something, ain't it?
Yeah, I feel like that there type.
I like it.
Say, Herbie.
What?
Listen.
What?
Listen, that great big fly of yours.
Yeah?
On the level now. Is there a great big fly?
Huh?
Couldn't you just be... Well, I just thought about it all of a sudden. I never seen this here fly.
You mean you think I'm just fooling?
I was wondering.
I was just making it up.
Was you?
No. I wasn't making it up.
I just wondered.
Listen, Buck. I never made that up. Listen, I wished I was. I wish I'd never started making flies grow big. I ought to have stopped when I got one this big.
I don't know whether to believe you or not.
Listen, Buck, when I think what that there fly... You remember way back last summer when we first talked about it? You said, what would you feed a great big fly?
Yeah.
Remember what you said?
What?
You said people. People, you said. That's what you'd feed him.
Oh, yeah.
Listen, Buck, he already had a dog. That we know about. What if he ain't dead by now and all is cold, he must be...
Must be what?
Hungry.
December 1915. Yeah, 76543, the 3rd, the night Herbie and me talked like I told you. I remember because on the 7th, the Boy Scouts had a movie at the Capitol Theater. It used to be the Standard Theater. And there was a kid with a bugle blowing it out front. That was the 7th. That was the night Bert Kincaid phoned me up from the shop and Mayor Watson came over from kind of next door and told me Bert was calling me. And I were, Bert, he said, you and Herbie Butterworth go right away to these people, these McKinleys or McKinleys or McKinneys, whichever it was, because their friend or something was wrong with it, and they was hollering they was freezing. And I should go right on over, and Herbie would meet me there. He was already on the way with Ricketts and the wagon and the tools. So I said, all right, and I went home and put on my overshoes and my army sweater, and I'm over there. See, the place is only 2 doors away from where Herbie lived, there by the Garfield School. And that's why he was there already, see? I never even bothered to knock on the door. I just went around to the cellar door with my Coleman lantern, and I come on down, and Herbie was there already sitting on the cellar steps, so I just about fell over him, and not looking very happy. Say, I said, I thought there was freezing to death here in this house with a busted furnace that's not cold down here. It's warm, I said.
I fixed it.
Huh?
I fixed the furnace. This valve was corroded, and I put a new one on. I fired up. It's all right.
Well, what you sitting on the cellar stairs for, then, if it's all fixed? What you sitting around here for?
Well,
What are you looking so crabby about? Anybody ought to be crabby, it's me. I walked halfway across town. I'm about... What you so crabby about?
Huh? She's down here.
Who?
Louise, you know, the McKinley gal, or whatever her name is.
Where? Oh. That's why I ain't welcome two's company. Three's
Shut up.
Gonna make some time, huh?
Shut up. She'll hear you.
Where is she?
I went back there in the preserve closet.
What for? Going to bring you a jar of apple butter?
The old man makes elderberry wine. He got some bottles back there he bought from Ohio or Iowa or whatever it is. 3 years old.
I sure like elderberry wine.
I know it.
Well, I tell you, Herbie, I'm a good guy. I'm your friend, Herbie. Seeing you got everything fixed up, I'll beat it.
You don't have to go.
I never stood in the guy's way, Herbie. I'll go out into the cold and the snow.
Ain't no snow.
I'll go right home and read V.C. Allensworth's editorials in the Times. I'll leave the coast clear for you.
You don't have to do that, Buck.
Just as soon as I have one drink of elderberry wine.
Know there was a catch in it.
Now, I'll go right away, honest, Herbie. Hey, you've been telling her about giant flies and things.
Cut it out.
That thing's dead.
I guess
If it ever was alive. You got the makings?
Got some tailor-mades. Nebos?
Yeah, much obliged. Ain't you smoking?
Nah.
What's she doing, making that wine?
Oh, man probably hid it for herself.
You give her a good smacking if you find she's swooping. Probably give you a good smacking, too, huh? Why'd you yell at her?
The folks will hear upstairs.
Louise!
Shut up.
Hey, Louise!
Shut up, Buck.
Come on, let's go help her.
Nix.
Louise, you want some help?
Buck, the people will hear you.
In here? Hey, Louise. I thought maybe you needed some... Louise? Louise?
Buck, what's that?
Herbie!
What's the matter, Buck? Buck, what's that? Louise!
I could recognize her by her clothes. By her clothes, that's all. You never saw a person that made a fly... No, you never did. Herbie and I did. A big... not 8, 9 inches long now, down in the hot, stuffy cellar. 2 feet long. And fat and kind of logy it was, dopey, like after you had a big dinner. And Louise... Herbie, he fainted, and I... Back there by the furnace pipes. I could see them eyes. The chillian eyes. And that trunk like elephant. It kind of buzzed and wiggled its eyes at me and rubbed its face with its paws like a cat washing its face after dinner. And I tried to holler, but all I could hear was this buzzing, that's all. And then it kind of stumbled out from the pipes and it jumped and it come right past my face and it flew kind of sagging, kind of out of the corner of my eye. I seen it. It flew right out into the furnace room and the furnace door was open and the fire... You don't want to hear anymore, huh? Well, there's only a little bit more. You've come this far with me, so... Well, they put us both, Herbie and me, in jail. They said we murdered Louise, but nobody could murder anybody like that. And there wasn't any other evidence, so... See, the fly was dead. Disappeared, and there wasn't anything to go on. So they had to let us go. That's pretty near the whole story. Ain't it, Herbie?
The egg?
Oh, sure. I pretty near forgot about that egg. And about the egg. Bigger than a hen's egg. Big's a turkey egg. Back there in the dark behind the pipes.
I didn't see it. Buck seen it.
But I never told anybody about it. Did I, Herbie? Nobody but you.
Well, when they left us out of jail, we come back here looking for it, but it was gone. There was kind of a scrunching back there, and we looked, and sure enough...
Larva. They call it in the books.
You know.
And we took it away with us. And sure enough...
This one grew bigger than its father, or its mother, or whatever it was.
And everyone since then has got a little bigger and a little hungrier. Ain't that so, Herbie?
Yep. Hungry all the time. Never let him out to hunt.
Wait. Look at him. Ain't he a dinger? First real live bet fly you ever seen. Here, Louise.
We call him Louise.
Look at them eyes. Jillions of them. Look. He unrolls his trunk. Ain't that cute? Nice, clean face. See the sharp bristles on his legs? Biggest fly in the world. Bigger than a collie.
Bigger than a Shetland pony, I bet.
And hungrier, too.
Come on, Louise. Wake up. He's awake, Buck.
Uh-huh. Okay, Herbie?
Okay.
Go on in. No, you I'm talking to.
You, he says. Go on in.
Go on in. Louise is hungry. That's it. What's the matter? Can't move your feet? Sure. You stuck in something? Used to call that stuff flypaper. We got a different name for it now. Yeah, no use trying to get loose. You're stuck for good. And Louise is hungry. Only hurt a minute, that's all. Careful, Louise, honey. Don't get your feet stuck in the man paper. Next week at the same time, I am quietly yours, Ernest Chappell.
I hate flies. I really do. In fact, if one gets trapped in the house, I will spend as much time as needed to track the thing down. Think fly safari here. This story freaked me out. Also, not 5 minutes after listening to it, a fly landed on my computer. Not real good timing. Quiet Please was a radio fantasy and horror program created by Willis Cooper, also known for creating Lights Out. Ernest Chappell was the show's announcer and lead actor. He was a talented man and could act the flypaper off of anything. The show debuted in 1947 on the Mutual Broadcasting System, and its last episode was broadcast on June 25th, 1949. I hope you enjoyed it. That was episode number 445, and these are the people that made it happen. Christine Malone, Thomas Day, Lisa, Michael Radcliffe, Jenny Mathis, and Alice Wakeford. Thank you guys. If you want to follow the podcast or the blog, head to ronsamazingstories.com. There you will find any of the links I mentioned and how to contact us. Do you want to help the show? The best thing you can do is to tell your friends all about it, and please leave reviews or feedback wherever you listen. Clicking that follow or like button makes us grow. Thank you for listening, and I hope you come again to find out what are Ron's Amazing Stories.
All of the vintage audio used in the podcast is believed to be in the public domain. Ron's Amazing Stories does not own the rights to any of the old-time radio used here. If you hold the rights to any of the shows played, please contact us immediately at ronsamazingstories.com.